Admiral Bradley, who testified, said that the boat wasn't headed to the U.S. That was part of the predicate for this strike, that it was coming here and it was bringing fentanyl. It was bringing cocaine to Suriname, so actually in the opposite direction. The two men who were killed were clinging to a piece of wood like they were on the Titanic. They didn't have any communications devices. They weren't armed, and there's no evidence that the cocaine survived.
Doesn't it sound like the Maryland Dad all over again?
But you know what? I do want to talk about the Maryland Dad.
Of course.
Because the Maryland Dad, you all sat here and you said you're out of your minds, right, for Chris Van Hollen going down there and you made up the fake story about the margaritas and whatever. And Democrats said, we want to talk about how people are treated who, first of all, have legal status. We want to talk about due process. And where did we go from there? We found out what the type of conditions are that people are being treated who were being improperly sent to CCOT, which we found out about American deals with Bukele, that we were actually forcing him to do this and wasn't comfortable with it.
So, once again, my favorite political pundit, Jessica Tarlov, went live on Fox News, and within seconds, she completely upended the narrative her co-hosts were spinning. The topic was a U.S. military strike on a Venezuelan boat. A strike Fox has been framing as a heroic, life-saving action.
You don't care, but Americans care.
Americans don't care.
They do.
Does not
then why is Donald Trump?
They care about their relatives dying from drugs.
Why is Donald Trump
They care
underwater
about their
on
jobs.
immigration
Not
now?
underwater, Jessica.
Yes,
don't
he
care
is.
about
you just
drug
don't like
dealers.
any polls that aren't
Did you know that the Coke boat strikes are the most popular foreign policy action that Donald Trump is taking?
Then run on it. No health care plan.
We will.
No affordability plan. We shoot random people in the Caribbean.
We're coming up with a health care plan.
Oh, I'll be waiting.
We'll have it tomorrow.
Yeah, okay.
But Tarlov wasn't buying it. She calmly laid out the facts like she always does. The boat wasn't even heading to the U.S. What? Someone wake and tell the president. It was actually going the opposite direction, to Suriname. The two men killed weren't armed. They had no communications devices, and there's no evidence that the cocaine even survived. In short, this wasn't a bold anti-drug victory. It was something far more complicated and far more tragic.
And they went in there saying it was a war crime, and then they left saying, So the story's over. This is such a bigger story. This Coke boat thing's the appetizer. We just had 2 U.S. jets violate Venezuelan airspace, and we're seizing oil tankers off their coast. This is much bigger than one strike against a vessel. This is a huge change in American foreign policy. We are the biggest superpower of the world. And we can project enormous power all over the world, but we don't do it in our own hemisphere. And as of now, that has changed. This is now a goal to dominate Latin America. They have mineral wealth. They have oil wealth. And we have Russia and China screwing around there. And the cartels are so out of control that it's causing mass migration into the United States, which brings guns, it brings drugs, and it lowers American wages.
Fox hosts had already been celebrating the strike, calling it a decisive move against their new favorite phrase, narco-terrorists, claiming tens of thousands of American lives were saved and cheering on the deaths of people at sea. And then Tarlov said what needed to be said. Maybe, just maybe, we shouldn't be celebrating unarmed men dying. Maybe context and human cost actually matter, even when the story fits a political agenda. The reaction on air was immediate, awkward pauses, stammering, and an almost visible scramble to regain control of the segment. You could tell they weren't ready for a fact check delivered with calm authority.
Yeah, it's all part of a bigger plan that President Trump has, which is to go after the drug cartels that are poisoning Americans with fentanyl and with the gun trafficking and the gangbangers and ruining our security in our cities. So it's all part of the same deal. And when he's sending those destroyers to the region, he's showing gunboat diplomacy. Like, remember, Maduro, we have a lot of capabilities here that you don't have.
Americans are dying. Yesterday, President Trump, he took decisive action to keep Americans safe from the vile scourge of fentanyl. He blew up a boat filled with drugs that were coming from Venezuela. He took 11 narco-terrorists out with it. And, of course, the left freaked out online. Liberal commentators calling the move pure gangsterism.
It's the 400,000 Americans who have died of fentanyl. 400,000 daughters, sons, brothers, sisters not here because an attack, I'm going to call it an attack, on the United States, drug smuggling across our border and over our seas.
They're calling Trump a murderous bully and a war criminal for taking out terrorists.
This moment isn't just about one Fox segment. It highlights a bigger pattern. how some right-wing media outlets frame foreign interventions in a way that glorifies militarized action while glossing over ethical and legal realities. In this case, the rhetoric was extreme, comparing the drug cartels to terrorists, celebrating gunboat diplomacy, and framing deaths as necessary for national security.
With little to no warning, a stealth U.S. military completes yet another operation it deems to be successful, with 3 more so-called drug boats obliterated in the open water under command given by the U.S. Defense Secretary.
A highly successful mission to counter designated terrorist organizations.
To the Trump administration, this is a war, with the American president using an argument of self-defense.
Self-defense would be allowed if there was an armed attack or an imminent armed attack. Well, of course, that is not what this is.
Donald Trump believes these to be justified actions, even as experts argue many of the drugs on these boats are Europe-bound, with Democrats decrying a decision to not show lawmakers the unedited videos.
How can you trust their transparency on all the other issues swirling about in the Caribbean?
That includes a massive buildup of military might and the recent seizure of an oil tanker. Trump has previously made clear his desire to control Venezuela's vast oil reserves, but there's growing worry that the U.S. may be heading down a familiar path.
Tarlov cut through all of that, grounding the discussion in facts and human consequences, and even pointing out the broader U.S. foreign policy implications, like the recent Venezuelan oil tanker seizure and increased military presence in the Caribbean.
I think what we've learned as a nation in the past 25 years is regime change doesn't always work well with us. The aftermath of rebuilding that government, that economy, is something that we learned is very expensive and blood and treasure.
The White House has repeatedly denied intent to topple the Maduro government, but Trump's own chief of staff appeared to contradict the official stance in an interview with Vanity Fair. Susie Weil says he wants to keep blowing boats up until Maduro cries uncle, and people way smarter than me on that say he will.
This counter-drug mission, which is focused on dismantling the infrastructure of these terrorist organizations that are operating in our hemisphere.
The Trump administration says U.S. preeminence is a part of its national security strategy. And to get there, war with Venezuela, at least for now, is still on the table.
It's also a reminder of what happens when someone speaks truth on a highly partisan stage. Tarlov didn't raise her voice. She didn't sensationalize. She simply presented reality, forcing her colleagues and the audience to confront it. Moments like these are rare on networks where loyalty often, forgive the use of the word, trumps accuracy.
Yeah, Pete Hegseth said about what we're looking at now, every boat that we strike is 25,000 American lives that have been saved. Yeah. We're talking about, Lawrence, fentanyl pills. We're talking about fentanyl powder, illegal guns, methamphetamine, cocaine, pounds of heroin.
So for the first time we had the president explain everything through. He even said, you know, you keep asking for the Secretary of War to come to Congress. I don't care. He can come to Congress. You're going to have to choose a side. Are you going to be on the side of the cartels, which is the new ISIS, or are you going to be side of the American people?
I do not believe they care. I refuse to invest any amount of caring on those people on the boat because they are terrorists.
Now, at the end of the day, Tarlov's truth-telling proves one thing. Even in a space dominated by spin and spectacle, facts still matter. And when someone is willing to call out misleading narratives on live television, it's uncomfortable. It's supposed to be. It's necessary, and it makes the conversation better for everyone. It shows viewers that context, accountability, and humanity can actually exist, even when partisanship runs deep. Once again, thanks for joining us. I'm Adam Carr with Debate Mania. If you liked today's video, go ahead and smash that like button. And what the heck, go ahead and subscribe. Stay informed. We'll see you next time.